Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss the last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. This lesson is about linguistic chauvinism and is written in the background of franco-prussian war. So let me tell you first that what is linguistic chauvinism. You have a question on the back of your chapter as well on this. So linguistic chauvinism. This is pronounced as chauvinism, not chauvinism. The reason is this is the word of French origin. So chauvinism actually was on the name of a person named Chauvin who was very patriotic. So linguistic chauvinism means what? Excessive love for one's language or carrying pride in one's language too far. That is linguistic chauvinism. And as I said, it's written in the background of franco-prussian war. So franco-prussian war, sorry. So what happened actually, there happened a war, and in that war two territories of France, that is Alsace and Lorraine, were captured by the Germans, and they ordered that only German would be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, no more French. So when this announcement came, the people of France realized their negligence. They realized that how they neglected their own language. So it was at that time they felt about that, they understood that, they realized that. So the whole story is about that. So we have two main characters here. One is the teacher M. Hamel and the other is the student named Franz. So these are the two main characters here. One is M. Hamel, the teacher, and the other is the student who is Franz. Now how the story begins actually, Franz is reluctant to go to school. He started for school very late, and the reason behind that is M. Hamel was going to ask about participles and he didn't know even a single word about that. So he thought of actually running away, staying out of doors. The atmosphere was very tempting, very attractive. The birds were chirping and the Prussian soldiers were drilling. It was warm and bright, so it was all the more tempting than the rule for participles. And this Franz, but though it was tempting, but he had the guts that no, I'll go. He had the guts, he had the strength to go to school. So he went to school. Then what happened on the way, there was a town hall and there was a bulletin board as well. So in that town hall, what happened, as I said, there was a bulletin board. So they would put up notices there. So for the last 2 years they had all the bad news from there, lost battles, the kind of draft orders of the commanding officer. So all kinds of news would be put up on the notice board and they would get to know it from there. Now when he was passing, he saw a crowd there and he couldn't understand that why this crowd was there. Why were the people standing there? But as he was already late, so he didn't stop there, he just moved on, thinking about that, why this crowd could be there. And then we have another character here, minor one, that is the blacksmith watcher. So what he was doing, he was reading the bulletin board. We have this character watcher, he is a blacksmith. So with his apprentice means one who is undergoing a trainee. So he was reading the bulletin board. So he just called after him and said that don't go so fast, Bob, you'll get to your school in plenty of time. He couldn't understand, he thought that he was making fun. Who? Watcher. Watcher was making fun of Franz. because he thought he was already late and he was saying plenty of time, so he couldn't understand and he moved on. So here we have some questions, so we'll discuss all the questions along with this story. So let me write some questions here. First is, why was Franz reluctant to go to school? And okay, let me do one thing. I'll just tell you the questions, so that otherwise the video will be very long. So you can just listen to that by pausing on the video and all that again and again. So the question here is, why was Franz reluctant to go to school? Then it comes, what was more tempting than the rules for participles? And what kind of news would be put up on the bulletin board? And why was there a crowd at the bulletin board? What did Wooster say to Franz and why? So what did he say is very much clear, is written in quote marks in the book. And why? The reason is that he had already read the news on the bulletin board and he knew it was no use hurrying, as it was going to be the last class. So okay, he reached school, and unlike the usual days, actually what the sound, there would be a lot of sound, lot of bustle, and that could be heard out from the outside. And what would be the sounds? Like the opening and closing the desk, like the children opening the drawer and closing it again, the sound of that, and the children repeating the lessons in unison with their hands over their ears. So like this, they all unitedly in unison repeating the lessons. And M. Hamel's ruler rapping on the table. Means M. Hamel also, just to maintain the discipline or just create terror or all that, he would use the ruler and he would tap it on the tables. So this would be the usual atmosphere, lot of sound and hustle and bustle. But on that day, it was all so still, all quiet. Now he had thought that there would be a lot of sound, commotion means uproar, a lot of noise. So he had thought that there would be a lot of sound and he would get to his seat without being noticed. Like nobody in that atmosphere, in that noise, nobody would notice him. He would simply get to his seat and sit there quietly. But on that day, it was as quiet as a Sunday morning. So why this comparison with Sunday morning? So the reason here that on Sundays schools are off. So that's why what the children were sitting there. It was schools are off. So that's why this comparison, because there was no noise on that day, no sound on that day. All were sitting very quiet. So that's the reason. Now he saw his classmates through the window. They were all sitting there. M. Hamel with his ruler under his arm was moving up and down. And finally, because there was no other option, so he had to enter before everybody. And of course, we can assume he was embarrassed, he was frightened. The reason? Because he thought actually that there would be some bombarding, there would be some dialogue from the teacher or something would be there, or so that's why. And moreover, it was like all were looking at him. He had thought that nobody would see, nobody would notice, and here all were looking at him. So he was a bit embarrassed and bit frightened as well. But M. Hamel didn't scold him. Quite unusual. M. Hamel didn't scold him. He simply said, "Get to your seat quickly, little friends. We are beginning without you." So it was really quite surprising. He jumped over the bench, just went to his seat, and when he was little over the fright, actually he was afraid. So now he got some time to be normal, and when he was normal, when he relaxed, he noticed what? M. Hamel had put on his means a very beautiful dress. What? He had put on his frilled shirt, beautiful green coat, and black silk hat, all embroidered over, which he never wore except on prize and inspection days. So that's what he was wearing. And what? He was quite surprised, because it was not a prize day, it was not an inspection day, still he was wearing that kind of dress. So what could be the reason? He was all surprised, and the most atmosphere there was quite calm and serene. And the most surprising thing was what? The backbenches. The backbenches, which were generally empty, on that day the village elders were sitting there. They were occupied by the village elders. Now why the village elders in the class? Now who were there actually? Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, former mayor and former postmaster, and these people were there. So now let me discuss some more questions here. So we have some more questions that how was or what was unusual about M. Hamel's school on the last day? What would be the usual atmosphere of M. Hamel's classroom? What kind of dress M. Hamel was wearing in the last class? So these are the questions which have been asked in your exams. Now what actually Hauser was sitting with a primer. Primer is a book of primary class, also a religious book, and it has two meanings. Now he couldn't understand, he was all wondering, he was thinking about that, and suddenly what? M. Hamel stood up and he addressed them all, and he said that an order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, and the new master comes tomorrow. So this is the last French class, I want you to be very attentive. So he addressed them all and just broke this news. And when he listened to this, it was like a thunderclap for France. Now, as written in the book, that what a thunderclap those words were to me. So it was like all thundering and lightning to him. He was all shocked. The reason was he didn't realize this, he didn't expect this. The news that Mr. Hamel had broke at that time, so he didn't expect that. So actually at that moment he realized what? Oh, the wretches. So that was that put up on the at the town hall. So at that time he realized that this was the reason why the crowd was there at the town hall. And then there was regret, remorse, compunction, he was feeling sorry that I don't know my language and all that, all those kinds of feelings that I must stop there then. Actually, what he would do, instead of learning his lessons, he would simply while away his time in seeking eggs and sliding on the Saar. Saar is the name of a river in this book. Now, earlier the books were a nuisance to him, heavy to carry. He didn't like those books, English grammar and history and all those. But now they became all friends, which he couldn't give up, which he couldn't abandon or leave. And his attitude towards M. Hamel also changed. Earlier to him he was a cranky person who would use his ruler. But now he forgot all about that. So cranky is irritable. And now what? So here comes another question. One is on the thunderclap, that what was the thunderclap and why was it a thunderclap? And the other is, how did the announcement by M. Hamel change France's attitude or outlook towards everything? So that is another one. Now slowly and gradually things were getting clear to him. He now understood why M. Hamel was wearing that fine Sunday clothes, means that kind of dress. Why? Now he understood. Now he understood why the village elders were sitting in the classroom, because they were sorry too that they didn't go to school. It was their way of thanking their master for his 40 years of faithful service. Actually, the teacher, M. Hamel, had been serving them for 40 years faithfully, loyally, and now it was their time to thank him. And it was their way to pay respect to the country. They were there to offer and pay their respect to the country, which was theirs no more, of course. So we got the answer to this question, that why were the village elders sitting in the classroom. Still he was wondering and thinking about all that, and now his name was called. Actually, it was his turn for participles. M. Hamel said he would ask about participles. So now it was his turn. He wanted to recite and tell everything about participles, but how? He didn't know anything. He tried, but bungled. Everything got mixed up. He stood there holding on to his desk. M. Hamel didn't scold him. M. Hamel said, I won't scold you, little Franz. I won't scold you. You must feel bad enough. You yourself must feel. Why, of course. See. And he then said that the problem with Alsace is what? She postpones things. She puts off things till tomorrow. That's the problem. People feel, okay, we have time, we'll do it tomorrow. And now he said, now we don't have any tomorrow. And now those people those Germans, they would have the right to say to you, means they will come and say that you pretend to be Frenchmen and you can neither write and nor read your own language. What kind of Frenchman you are? Definitely they could say this. And now he said, but you are not the worst. Teacher was trying to say that it was not the mistake of Franz alone. They all had a part to play in that, and that's why he says, you are not the worst. We all are to be reproached. We all have a great deal to reproach ourselves with. That's what he said. So the question here is, why according to M. Hamel were all to be reproached? That is, to be blamed. So, teacher was negligent, parents were negligent, and the students, they were of course negligent. So that was the reason. He said, your parents, actually what the parents did, they preferred to put them on some farm or at some mill so that they could earn more. The children never cared for their studies, and M. Hamel too at times had been negligent. He sent the children to water the flowers in his garden, and he gave them holiday when actually he wanted to go fishing. So he would give them holiday. So he was also very regretful that day, and what then he started talking about the language. He said it's the most beautiful, clearest and most logical language in the world. We must stick to it. We must hold fast to it. All that he said, and he said it's the key to prison. Now how can a language be the key to prison is another question. So how can a language be the key to prison? That it is what? The language is, the basic, the common, strongest tool of communication. So using language as a tool, one can put across one's ideas, and in such times, that is when people are put in or they are captivated, they are put in as hostage or so they are like oppressed and suppressed. So in such times, of course, language can be used to unite masses. So now he took a book, read a lesson in grammar. Franz was amazed that he understood everything. That was surprising because perhaps before that he didn't understand anything. So it seemed M. Hamel had never taught so patiently and he never listened so attentively. And then what? There was writing. So they were given fresh copies. France, Alsace, these two words were written on them. And they didn't know much actually. It was just for what? They were given that copying work. They just had to copy down those two words. And there was complete silence in the classroom. All were set to work, all were sincerely working, even the small children. So there were very small children as well. So all varieties were there in the classroom. The very little small children, then the say bigger ones, and then the elderly people as well. So all kinds of people were there in the classroom. So those young, the littlest, the smallest ones as well, they were also busy. And what they were doing actually, they were tracing the fish hooks. They didn't know even writing. They were that small and little. So they were doing what? They were tracing the fish hooks as if it were French too. And then there was a cooing sound on the roof, a low cooing sound. So it's as written here, on the roof some pigeons cooed very low. So there was cooing sound there, and when he listened to this, he thought, what? Will they make them sing in German too, these pigeons? So it now why this thought struck him at that point, at the time? Quite naturally that he was quite disappointed, and the pigeons, they too might be disappointed. It shows that as it's a low sound, so we can say that even the pigeons perhaps were disappointed. They didn't like this idea. So when he heard them cooing in a low tone, he might have thought that this is perhaps the Germans wanted complete domination over the French territories. So it was a sign of that, he might have thought so. And then whenever he would look up from his desk, from his writing, he would see what? M. Hamel, sometimes looking here, sometimes looking there, as if what? Trying to capture. There were perhaps no cameras those days, or of course 40 years he had spent there in the service of those people. So how could he leave everything at once? So it was really quite difficult. It was heartbreaking. It was like all at once, after rendering 40 years of service, all at once an order comes and tells you, now you are no more required, just leave. So that is really heartbreaking. That was heartrending, harrowing. And so what? Upstairs, sister was packing trunks, and M. Hamel finally took history. The babies chanted their ba baby boo boo. Now what is it? Of course it's about French, not Hindi, English or any other language. So, and he heard them till the last. Yes, he didn't say, okay, pack up, wind it up, now you didn't learn anything all through this period, so now you'll do in one day, so just pack it up. No, he didn't do that. He listened, he heard till the very last. At the end, at the back of the class, Hauser had put on his spectacles, and with primer in his hand, he was trying to read. And we all wanted to laugh, and we all wanted to cry. So we have a question here as well, that why this ambivalence? Why did they all want to laugh and to cry? So the reason for laughter, the way Hauser was reading, his voice was trembling and he was spelling out each letter. So his manners seemed to be quite amusing, and that's why they wanted to laugh and cry, because it was the last French class. So that was the reason they wanted to cry. And then it was the church clock struck 12. The trumpets of the Prussian soldiers could be heard. Yes, they were returning from the drill, so sounded under our windows. And Hamel stood up. Now the writer has written, he looked very tall. So it was not that his height increased on the last day. It is what? His stature, his personality, his character, the way he conveyed his feelings for his country, for his language, and the way he tried to instill those feelings in the hearts and minds of those people. So that made him look so tall and towering. And then what he did, he addressed, but he couldn't speak. It was like I, and then no more than I. He couldn't speak, became sentimental, his throat was choked. He took a piece of chalk and bearing on with all his might, he wrote on the board, what? Vive la France. That is, long live France. So, what does that mean? Yes, as he said, long live France. So, and then with a gesture of his hand, he couldn't speak at all. He was so emotional at the time. With a gesture of his hand, he simply said, what? The school is dismissed. So, this is all about your last lesson. And one more important question. One, I talked about linguistic chauvinism in the beginning. So we have a question that what is linguistic chauvinism? Explained with reference to the last lesson. And one more question which has often been asked, and all these questions have often been asked in your board exams. So one more question here is, everyone in the classroom was filled with regret on the last day in the last class. Explain. So this has been asked several times, has been repeated. So these are the questions and this is the whole story. I hope it's all clear to you. You might have understood it very well. So I'll come up with more such things, more such stories, more chapters, their question answers, their explanations. So stay tuned, keep watching. Till then, thank you very much.